As the people of Cumbria gather for memorial services to remember the shocking and tragic events of last week, it's right that our thoughts are with them and with the friends and families of all those who were killed or injured. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will wish to join me in paying tribute to the soldiers who died in Afghanistan. From 40 Commando Royal Marines, Marine Anthony Hoteen. From 1st Battalion, the Mercian Regiment, Lance Corporal Alan Corcoran and Corporal Terry Webster, and a soldier from 3rd Regiment, Royal Horse Artillery, who died yesterday. They were all extremely talented and professional servicemen who gave their lives for the safety and security of people in our country. We owe them a huge debt of gratitude, and our thoughts should be with their families and with their friends. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Albert Owen.
Can I associate myself with the words of the Prime Minister and offer my condolences to the families of those who were tragically killed in West Cumbria and the servicemen who died serving our country? The reports in the newspaper that the Prime Minister wants a positive relationship with the assemblies in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, and indeed he wants to work with them in partnership. In that theme, will the Prime Minister put forward a measure before the House that allows a referendum this autumn for greater powers for the Welsh Assembly? And will we come clean with this House and with the people of Wales and say whether he's in favour of additional powers himself?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, let me be as frank and as clear as I can be. We had a meeting of the Joint Ministerial Council yesterday with representatives of all the devolved assemblies and governments. I want to have a genuine respect agenda between the UK government and all those administrations. We've always said, I'll tell you exactly what that means there will be a referendum on extra powers for the Welsh Assembly. That referendum, we believe, should take place next year. If the honourable gentleman shakes his head, but if he wanted to have a referendum earlier, the last Secretary of State could have actually pushed it through earlier, and he didn't. So I have to tell him that referendum will take place. It will be a matter for people in Wales to decide. They must determine the future. As for my view, as someone who spends a lot of time in Wales, has great respect for people in Wales, I always find that, yes, there is a debate about powers for the Assembly, but there's also a debate of people in Wales wanting to know how we're going to make progress on housing, on healthcare, on schools, on jobs, the real issues, as well as just the institutional ones.
Tim Farron.
Mr. Speaker, apologies. In associating myself also with the remarks the Prime Minister rightly made about the dreadful shootings in Cumbria last week, may I also pay tribute to the emergency services and indeed to all of those who are recovering from that appalling tragedy. But on another matter, the Prime Minister will be aware that the National Cancer Reform Strategy states that no cancer patient should have to travel more than 45 minutes to receive radiotherapy treatment. Last December, we received a commitment from our local health trusts that there would be a new cancer unit for South Lakeland in Kendal. Will the Prime Minister agree to meet with me and with health campaigners and NHS officials soon to try and ensure that he also makes a commitment, Prime Minister, the delivery of a cancer unit?
We really must have shorter questions.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, he will note that in the coalition agreement, I'm glad to remind everyone, we are protecting NHS spending. There will be real increases in NHS spending under this government year on year on year. I absolutely understand the concerns that there are about wanting to keep services local to people. I know that's the case in Lakeland. It's also the case with the case of the West Cumberland Hospital as well. I'm very happy to ensure there's a meeting between the Health Secretary and the Honourable Member to discuss this and to make sure we keep services local. A lot of the reconfigurations that took place under the previous government caused an enormous amount of pain and unease in local areas and didn't actually lead to improved services.
Harriet Harman.
Mr. Speaker, I join the Prime Minister in paying tribute to the 4 soldiers who died in the service of our country in the past week. Marine Anthony Hoteen from 40 Commando Royal Marines, Lance Corporal Alan Corcoran from 1st Battalion, the Mercian Regiment, Corporal Terry Webster from 1st Battalion, the Mercian Regiment, and a soldier from 3rd Regiment, Royal Horse Artillery. They fought with bravery, and today we remember not just the sacrifice they made, but also the loved ones they leave behind. Can I support what the Prime Minister said about Cumbria and join him in expressing our heartfelt sympathy to the family and friends of all those who were killed or injured? The police investigation is underway. Can he update us on the work the government is doing? Can I ask him, is he in a position yet to tell the House if the government has any plans to reconsider the regulation of guns? As the Home Secretary rightly said in her statement last week, we have to learn any lessons we can.
Can I thank the Right Honourable Lady for her words? It is right to reflect on this appalling tragedy and to think how best we go forward. Specifically on the gun laws, we need to be clear first about the full facts of the case. We also need, I think, to determine the type and the scope of reviews that will take place after this tragedy. Of course, the Home Office will look again at the gun laws in the light of that. And I can announce today as well that the Chief Constable of Cumbria has already written to the ACPO President asking him to support a peer review to be conducted by national police experts on firearms licensing, the police firearms response and firearms tactics. These reviews will all become publicly available documents. I do believe we shouldn't leap to conclusions. I don't believe in knee-jerk legislation. We do have some of the tightest gun laws in this country, but of course we should look again. In terms of this issue of what sort of review is right for people in West Cumbria, I'm meeting with two of the West Cumbrian MPs whose constituencies are affected straight after Prime Minister's questions in my office, and the Right Honourable Lady would be very welcome to join us with the Home Secretary to discuss that. In the end, what we must do is make sure we do the right thing by the people of West Cumbria and make sure that they are properly served in the things that we decide as a government.
Harriet Harman.
Fully support everything the Prime Minister said in that answer that he's given the House. And can I say that I'm sure that the visit that he as Prime Minister and the Home Secretary made to Cumbria was very much appreciated. Mr Speaker, just before the general election, the Electoral Commission published a report which showed that despite the efforts of electoral registration officers, there are still serious concerns about the number of people who are eligible to vote but who are not on the electoral register. Given that the government is committed to major reform of constituency boundaries, will he undertake not to press forward with these changes on the basis of an electoral register that excludes 3.5 million people?
Well, first of all, let me agree with the Right Honourable Lady that it is important that people who are eligible to vote register to vote, and we do want to see that speeded up and improved, and my Right Honourable friend, the Deputy Prime Minister, is taking forward that work. We also want to see individual voter registration, because there has been a great increase in fraud in recent years. But even as that work goes ahead, I think it is important that we have a reform so we have equal-sized constituencies across our country, because those of us who support the first-past-the-post voting system want to make it more fair by making sure that seats are the same size across our country. Where on earth is the unfairness in that?
Harriet Harman.
Well, the danger is that if he presses on in the way he's indicated, he will be making the system less fair, not more fair. As he said, the Deputy Prime Minister acknowledged to the House this week that there is a problem with the register. The Electoral Commission's study found not just the number of people not on the register, but who they are. The people who are not on the register are 1/3 of all black people, half of all young people, and half of all private sector tenants are not on the register, despite the new work that's been undertaken by electoral registration officers. Now, these are the people who will not be counted if he redraws constituency boundaries now. He says he wants equal constituencies. Doesn't he accept that you can't have equal constituencies based on an unequal register?
Well, I have to say to the Right Honourable Lady, she had 13 years to sort out the issue of voter registration. And what's interesting about what happened over the last 13 years is that elections used to be determined by a few officials in the Home Office. We've now got the vast bureaucracy of the Electoral Commission. It spends millions of pounds every year. It employs dozens of people, holds huge, great reviews, spends vast amounts of money on advertising, but hasn't succeeded in its task. So we will press ahead to get people to register, but I have to ask her again, what on earth is unfair about equal-sized seats? My honourable friend who sits for the Isle of Wight, I think he's got about 110,000 constituents that he has to look after. Some members opposite have about